Hello and good evening. Welcome. We are going to be discussing how to find the right home equity line of credit in the state of Texas. Okay. For those of you that are brand new, right now, what I'm doing is an entire series on home equity lines of credits in the second position. One of the things that I see people struggle with the most regarding this specific strategy: velocity banking, accelerated strategies, mortgage acceleration, debt acceleration, paycheck parking. There's a lot of different names and terms, marketing terms for it. But in essence, we're using a properly structured line of credit from a bank in which we are essentially consolidating high interest debts into this line of credit. And then we're using the line of credit like a checking account. So instead of the traditional way that you would normally get out of debt, you're simply making income, you're paying bills, and then usually towards the end of the month, you see how much money is left over. That's your cash flow. You then make a extra payment toward a debt that you're after. Okay, that is the traditional way of getting out of debt. Pretty simple, straightforward, not a whole lot of think to it, and it yields results, no doubt. What velocity does is try to increase that timeline by leveraging debt and increase risk for a higher reward for a shorter time frame result. So there's risk involved, there's leverage involved, there's more think, there's more strategy. You're focusing on interest cost of each and every one of your debts. And instead of just using your cash flow each and every month to pay down your debt, you're actually using 100% of your paycheck to pay down your debt, because the line of credit is replacing your normal checking account. Instead of having money sit idle in a checking account for 10, 15, 20, 25 days throughout the month, you're actually going to have all of your income sit inside of the line of credit. And that is effectively reducing your daily interest costs. Your overall percentage cost that you pay in a year ends up being far less than whatever the rate was given on the line of credit. Now, with that being said, the interest rate is important on your line of credit. And what I would say is even more important is the way your line of credit is structured. What are the features and benefits? How is it set up for you to have the most success? The folks who take the time to go through this series state by state, to become a master at research, to find the opportunities that are hidden, that are not being marketed by the banks or taught by very many people online, there is a massive opportunity right now for those that are in lots of debt, or those that are looking to leverage capital at a very low cost and maybe make strategic investments that would yield high returns. This whole series is just for you. Now, we're going to dive right into it. We're focusing on the state of Texas. These action items on the left-hand side of the board, I have been beating down in this series, left and right, up and down, around and back around. This is your framework for you to find the best home equity line of credit. I am doing the research with you, state by state. If you live in the state that I cover, you're also going to want to do research on top of my research, and let's have a competition. Let's see who can find the best banks in your state. That's super important. I want you to trust what I'm saying, but verify it. So what I'm going to do each and every time we go state by state, give you the action items. Here's what I'm looking for. Here's where my eyes are going when I'm on the website. We're going to take you through a bunch of different banks, and then I put my top picks on the board. Every state is set up differently with the opportunities. Some states come to play, some states don't. Some states have very little opportunity to find the right product. And then there are other states that are just balling. They're just out here providing so much incentive, and that can be fun. When that occurs, if you're in a state that's highly competitive, you're going to want to stay in that state and settle with a bank that's, really offering something well worth your time, your money, your patience, your credit. For those of you that are in a state that's not so competitive, Texas is one of those states. They're not a competitive state when it comes to finding the right home equity line of credit. It was really tough with the research that I've done so far, but I also want you to verify, because if you live in the state of Texas, depending on where you're located, when you log on, the IP address is going to be able to populate more banks for you. I'm in Florida, so it's only going to give me so many banks for me to look at. Keep that in mind. So I want you to challenge the research that I find. Okay, I'm giving you the framework on how to look up this stuff, and then based on my research, I've got 3 banks that are my top picks. Like I said, Texas is a huge state. So they have tons and tons of banks. Tons and tons of banks. But the competition is just very low. Okay? I'm going to take you through all the banks I found so far. I got all the windows open. And before I do that, there's one key detail about Texas that's very different from all of the other states regarding home equity lines of credits that are revolving. Okay? That caveat is every time you transfer money out of the HELOC, there is a minimum draw of $4,000. That's with every HELOC in the state of Texas, as far as I know, including states that cover Texas. They're also subject to that rule. So if you find say you live in Texas, but you find a bank in Vegas that covers Texas, or any neighboring state that covers Texas, they're going to have to abide by that same rule. So every time you transfer money out of the HELOC, it has to be a minimum of $4,000, which can create a bit of an inefficiency in regards to the velocity strategy. But here's the workaround. Here's the workaround. What would happen is how I can illustrate it for you. Let's say your HELOC is here. Checking account is here. You pay your bills and debts here. When income lands, you get paid. Where does it land? Lands into your checking account. You're immediately going to transfer all that income into the HELOC. Obviously, before you do that, you're going to transfer money out of the HELOC to make your chunk. Let's say that chunk amount is 15 grand. So that 15,000 is essentially going to what? Pay off a debt, consolidated debt in that sense. Then cash flow gets created because you're no longer paying that debt. Cash flow gets created. Interest is now saved. Okay. You now owe 15K in the line of credit. At that point, your income has landed into your checking account. You're going to transfer all that income into the HELOC. Let's say you make $5,000 a month. So let's break it up. Say you get a salary of $2,500 every month. So you're going to dump 25 in, but when you go to move money out to pay your expenses, you have to withdraw 4,000. Okay. Now, let's say you don't have $4,000 worth of bills in a month, or even within a week or two. The workaround would be, let's say, of the 4,000, only $1,500 you really need for expenses. So all you would do is take the difference, right, and transfer it back. So you transfer the difference back to the HELOC. So there's no rule, there's no prohibiting you taking the 4K out and then immediately throwing it back in and only keeping out what you need. So if it's the 1,500, okay, so then I'm transferring $2,500 back into the line of credit. Does that make sense? Let me know in the comments if that is abundantly clear. So that's your workaround. The other additional thing that obviously helps, this is consistent with every state when you're doing the strategy, is when you are leveraging credit cards or a credit card to run expenses each month. One of the ways that you can reduce the amount of times that you're doing that withdrawal and then transfer back in, because this is additional manual work, no doubt. So that's why I said there's like an additional inefficiency when it comes to the state of Texas, because you have to be mindful of that 4K withdrawal each and every time. And then you're having to manually transfer money back in, keep what you need, and then do it again. The way to kind of reduce that is if you have a credit card that you're running expenses on, it's going to reduce the amount of times you have to do that withdrawal. So if you run $3,000 a month on a credit card, you're only having to do one withdrawal of 4,000, keep 3 out, transfer 1K back in. When it comes to your cash expenses, mortgage payment, other debt payments, credit card payments, things like that, what you could do is try to change your due dates, change due dates for cash expenses together. All right. So that's another way that you can reduce the friction of the amount of in and out that you'd have to do. So say for example, you have 7 credit cards. They're all due at all different times throughout the month. You can call all those credit card companies, change all the due dates to around the same period. And then now you're only doing that 4K withdrawal one time. And maybe that covers $2,000 or $3,000 worth of expenses. And like I said, you're just immediately transferring the difference back, because you don't want to be paying interest in your HELOC on money that's sitting in your checking account. You don't want to be paying unnecessarily daily interest. You want to throw that money back into the home equity line of credit. All right. So that's the only additional detail. There's really no way around that. Every bank, as we will go through, you'll see that minimum withdrawal amount. So now here are the 3 banks that I found that are offering the best deals, the best incentives, the best rates, and it's not pretty. Like I said, Texas did not come to play compared to some other states that we've covered in our series so far. So the first bank is Randolph Brooks Federal Credit Union. I've had multiple clients in the state of Texas use this bank in the past, so they're a legitimate bank. They do 6.75%, no intro rate, 10-year draw, 80% LTV, mobile banking friendly, closing costs, with a max rate of 15%. Give me just a second here. Okay. Then we have United Texas Credit Union, very similar to Randolph. I've also had people use United Texas Credit Union in the past as well. 6.99%. Keep in mind, prime is currently 7.25% as of September 2025. Okay? So part of the action items, we're always trying to find a bank that's offering their interest rates based off prime or prime minus. Many of the banks in Texas that I've seen are operating off of a prime plus. So they just don't make it to the whiteboard. Okay? That's just the reality, because I've already found 3 banks that are below prime. That's very, very attractive. So 6.75, that's 0.5% below prime. 6.99, that's minus 0.26%. Same thing. Smart Financial Credit Union, 6.99. All 3 don't have an intro rate. That's the only bummer that I haven't seen. All of them are 80% LTV. I don't know what the max credit limit is with Randolph. I didn't see it on the site. The $200,000 credit limit max with United, and a minimum of $40,000. So you have to have at least $40,000 or more, 80% LTV on your home in order to work with United. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Some other banks have a minimum of $10,000 or $15,000. United is a little bit higher on their minimum, and they really don't go that high, only $200,000. Smart Financial Credit Union, didn't see what their max credit limit is, but was able to pull the 6.99 rate, 10-year draw, mobile banking friendly, 80% LTV. All of these banks have closing costs. On Smart Financial Credit Union, I didn't see if there's closing costs or not. So I'm just going to assume that there is. And the majority of banks that I've looked up so far all have closing costs. So like I said, Texas just isn't playing fair. They're being stingy with the banks. They're not putting out nice intro rates. Although that could change. If rates continue to go down, we might see more competition. As of right now, it's light. Very, very light. So I'm just going to run through all the banks just so you can see how much research that I've done, and I would like you that live in Texas to please do the same. And then if you find something that is worthy of the whiteboard after the live stream is over, go ahead and comment the link or name of the bank for other people to learn, because this video will live on for years and years to come. Now, what's also pretty cool is those of you that catch this recording, say years out from now, what I'm seeing on Google, when you type in how to find a home equity line of credit, if you go under videos, my videos are popping up as #1, which is like mind-blowing, because it's like no one's ever really gone thoroughly with each and every state. There are articles on like top 5 HELOCs or 10 best HELOCs, things like that, but nothing really ever in depth on how we're searching and how we're qualifying these banks. So I know these videos are going to help so many people for years and years to come. So I'm excited about that, honestly. So here's one bank I found, Houston Federal Credit Union. reason why they didn't make it to the board, I'm going to share with you now. So we have borrow whenever you want, do whatever you wish, right? Okay, cool. 80% LTV. Mobile banking friendly. Low rates than most loans because, you know what? Once we read, we learn that's not exactly the case. So, max rate of 18%. So they cover Texas and South Carolina. All right, so you got to pay all the closing costs involved. As you can see, that minimum draw amount, right? $4,000. That's just normal in the state of Texas. And let's see. Did they expose what the rate is? I think they did over here. Not mistaken. Boom, boom, boom. Let me go back. It was. There we go. Okay, so Houston Federal Credit Union does just prime. So it's not bad, okay? But again, it didn't make it to the board just because I found 3 banks that are already below prime. And if this bank was doing some kind of an intro rate, then it would have made it to the board. So 7.25, you're going to see quite a few banks in Texas that just do prime, and you're going to see a lot of prime plus. So that was Houston Federal Credit Union. Moving right along to the next bank, this is the Randolph RBFCU. Don't get confused. These are all their different home equity loan products. Even though it says home equity, if it doesn't say LIEN, it's a home equity loan, more than likely. So don't get confused. You scroll down, you'll see home equity line of credit. One of the things I found pretty interesting with Texas that I haven't really seen other banks do in other states is they say, okay, rate as low as 6.75, but then it says APR as low as 6.814%. Then we read, it says the rate is based on an index minus a margin. As of September 29th, variable rate is 6.814%, which I'm like, that's not true. Prime is 7.25 right now, so I don't know how they got that number. But your APR will increase or decrease quarterly, so it doesn't change monthly. It changes only 4 times a year, right? With a max of 15%. So it's honestly a really attractive home equity line of credit for the state of Texas. It really is. As you can see, that minimum draw amount again. Okay. I just not fully clear on, okay, is it 6.75 or 6.8? What are we doing? That was only a little confusion there. 80% LTV, as you can see. And borrower will be responsible for certain closing costs, all right, all this stuff. So you're most likely going to pay a good amount of money in closing costs if you got to cover everything. So that most likely will be $500 or more. So that's going to be the exception in regards to the state of Texas. Typically in my framework, come over to the whiteboard. In terms of my framework, I really like to get HELOCs that are 0 closing costs or very, very low, or the bank reimburses me for what I pay. And that's just not the case here in the state of Texas, unfortunately. So we're just going to have to roll with the punches in that sense. Again, things could change though. All right, so that's Randolph. Here's another bank. Very confusing the way they laid out their explanation. This is American Airlines Credit Union. they do this discount on their fixed rate HELOC, but technically their fixed rate HELOC, from what I'm seeing, is a loan. And then it's like not available in Texas, so then it says not available in Texas again, but then there's something called the Texas variable rate home equity line of credit. Home equity line of credit loan. Very weird. They use line and loan in the same sentence. Really interesting. Yeah, 10-year draw period. It says HELOC checks are not available. So I don't know if it's mobile banking friendly, which I'm gonna guess that it's not. So this didn't make the board. It does show the 7.25, so prime, but I'm a little bit sus about if American Airlines has any physical locations in the state of Texas. They do have checking accounts that I see here, but I don't know if it's mobile banking friendly or to do that velocity strategy. Moving right along, we got another bank called In Touch Credit Union. And let's see. As you can see, plus the stated margin. So Wall Street Journal prime rate 7.25 plus stated margin. We don't know what that is. But that little detail right there just gives it away. It's like, yeah, it's really not going to be all that attractive. On top of that, the draw period is only 5 years. Not that attractive, ladies and gentlemen. Not that attractive at all. So I didn't spend too much time on that website. Next bank, Credit Union of Texas. I do believe I've had people use this bank before. I know they do offer a HELOC product, but draw period is either going to be 5 years or 10 years. Interest only payments. Here's our variable product. But keywords that we don't love, plus a margin. Okay, so 7.25 plus a margin. We don't know what that margin is. The next value is 8%. So based on what I'm seeing here, it looks like they might start us off at 8%. So that's prime plus 0.75%. Extremely unattractive compared to the banks that we have on the board. Another reason why this bank did not make it. But that's Credit Union of Texas. Whenever I say I have clients that have used this bank or this bank, that doesn't mean I endorse the bank necessarily, because oftentimes I'm acquiring a lot of my clients after they made mistakes, after they did what I told them not to do, and then they come back into the fold, and then we, realign and start doing things correctly. So just because I said Credit Union of Texas is used by some of my banks, that doesn't mean go and apply here, because I'm clearly showing you on the whiteboard the 3 banks that I'm dialing in with. That if I lived in Texas, these are the 3 banks that I'm going to look at, regardless of where I'm located. Okay, because I have no issue banking with a bank that's nowhere near driving distance. It's nice, it's convenient, but if you're leaving me no choice, right, not a whole lot of options, I'm going with the bank that gives me the most incentives, period. So here we have Capital Credit Union. It says rates as low as 5.49%, but a little bit sus because I don't know if that applies to the home equity line of credit. But it does say 10-year draw variable rate. We don't know what it is. Obviously, you see the 4K, 80% LTV. And then one thing that I do have hope for, it says plus or minus a margin based on credit worthiness. So the only reason why I didn't put it on the bank, because it's not on the whiteboards, because it's not made clear. But that would be a bank that I would call to see what their prime minus rate would be for the home equity line of credit product. Simply because we've seen how all the other banks were showing prime plus, but it's showing prime plus slash minus a margin based on credit worthiness. Here's the next bank. Don't get fooled. Connexus Credit Union. They have a standard HELOC and an interest-only HELOC. They're doing a 5.99 rate for 12 months, I believe, is the duration, or until April 1st of 2026. So it's either 5.99 until April 1st, 2026, or their offer of 5.99% is valid until April of 2026, and then it goes away. So I'm not clear on the timeline exactly, but don't get convinced right away by that 5.99, because look at this rate. See that 8.17%? That's nearly a prime plus 1%. Nearly. Extremely unattractive, even though you start off at that 5.99. They do have a longer draw period, 15 years. It's cool and all, but don't love it. Tried to see if there was any other. Yeah, so 5.99 is an introductory rate lock available until April 1st. Okay, so it's still not clear on like the actual time frame. And there's closing costs. Wait, product not available Maryland, Texas, Hawaii, and Alaska. What the heck? Hold on. It's probably not even worth our time. Not available Maryland, Texas, Hawaii. Okay, so Texas, ignore this bank. I didn't read that last part. Not even worth our time. United Texas Credit Union. Here we go. This made it to the board. Minimum 40,000. The 80% max LTV. And I think 200,000 is the max credit limit that you can get. I think I might have read it somewhere else. Let me see. Yeah, right there. So they only do a max 200,000. As you see, that 6.99 is awesome for the state of Texas compared to what else is out there. Okay, so not that attractive. Texas Bay. Home equity line of credit. 80% LTV. Minimum 10K line. But honestly, they didn't give me much information to go off of. So I'm like, okay. Trying to find some more. They got a 5-year draw period. Don't love that. A little short for me. And I think when I went here, try to find a little bit more info. Obviously, we got closing costs. Not fun. Your rate is tied to US Prime. Boom. There you go. So again, another bank doesn't make it to the board. That's Texas Bay Credit Union. Smart Financial did make it to the board. 80% LTV. come over here, scroll down, home loans, HELOC. We want this one right here, Texas Home Equity Second Lien, five-year draw, 6.74%. Double check that might be a home equity loan because I'm not seeing the line word. Then we have this Texas HELOC ARM and the word revolving. So that definitely assures me 6.99%. That's what I put on the board. But then again, Texas does this weird thing where it's like interest rate as low as boom or APR as low as boom. Two different numbers. So it's either going to be as low as 6.99 or as low as 7.1. A little bit odd to me. Don't fully understand that. As you can see, 10-year draw. Definitely got some fees, closing costs. Okay. But again, prime minus is extremely valuable in the state of Texas. And look how rare it is. We're just not finding anything. Okay. Here's another bank called Amplify. And it's as low as prime, 7.25. So again, can't put it on the board. It's like if I wanted to just put more banks on the board, I could just put the banks that are doing prime, 7.25. I could do that, but just not in love with what I'm seeing. Looks like they have a line of credit, personal line of credit as well. But home equity, yeah, 10-year draw, blah, blah, blah. You can see that draw, closing costs. Don't love it. Radiant Credit Union almost had me. They almost had me. 4.99 for 12 months. That would be so awesome if you would have just put it at prime. Not even asking for prime minus. If you would have just put it at prime, it would have made it to the board. But they have rates starting as low as 8%. So that's prime plus 0.75%. Now, this is the only bank I found that's actually covering your closing costs in the state of Texas. So that could be a play. That could be a play if you're like, I'm only going to be in debt for this much longer. If I leverage this 4.99, I'll be able to cover this amount. And if they're willing to cover my closing costs, I save a couple grand in interest. That 0.75% difference will be less than the thousands of dollars I paid in closing costs, let's just say. It'll take 2 years or a year and a half before that 8% really starts to quote unquote hurt. So I could definitely put this on the whiteboard. Might as well. That's like not terrible, but is definitely short-term thinking. Not a long-term product, okay? So 4.99, 12 months, 8% after, no closing costs. All right. I'm just gonna write short term. Then we have a bank called Four Leaf, and I was looking to see if they cover the state of Texas. Oh, never mind. Sorry, guys. Well, no. It just says Four Leaf does not currently offer HELOCs in Texas or for cooperative. Okay, never mind. Dang it. That would have been real nice. 5.99 intro rate, no closing costs, prime afterwards. That would have been good. But, okay, we can't use them. And then I just kept going. I'm on page 2 of Google. Trying to find somebody who can help a brother out. So I got the 6.99. Let's read. Let's see if they cover Texas. So they do have branches in Texas. Home equity line of credit. So now I'm on the Texas site. So we got 6.99 interest rate for the first 6 months. After the APR is based on a 30-day average. To the nearest point plus a... oh, God. Ugh. Ugh. Sorry, guys. Sorry, Texas. We don't want to use that bank. That's a prime plus 3%. Are you out of your mind? Don't accept that, please. Texans Credit Union. Only got a 5-year draw, 80% LTV. Prime. No intro. It's the only downside. Oh, they're not going to make it on the board. What's this? Connecta? 12 months, 6.99. Prime plus. Ugh. Man. Tough. Tough. I'm going to go to page 3 of Google. See what we can find here. Nope. 7.5. What's Greater Texas? Did I see this bank yet? They don't even do a HELOC. Let's see what Bank of America is doing. Oh, no. See, this is why we don't work with big banks. That's prime plus almost 2%. That's why we don't work with big banks. Austin Telco Federal Credit Union. Is this a maybe, baby? Let me see. No closing costs. Less than 250,000. 8% LTV. Home equity. I think these are loans. Home equity loans. I don't think they do a HELOC. Neighborhood credit union couldn't open. Yeah, guys, we're burnt. We are burnt. So, not the most exciting thing in the world in this series. Unfortunately, I wish I had better news. But when it comes to the state of Texas, these are my top 3 banks that I'm looking at if I lived in Texas, according to the research that I've done. Again, if you live in the state of Texas, double check the research. See what might pop up in your area. See if you can beat my prime minus 0.5%, prime minus 0.26%, and then prime minus 0.26. The only way you beat these banks is if you can find some kind of an intro rate plus no closing costs, then I would be okay with being at, say, prime. All right. But If it's going to be an intro rate at 4.99% and then you're going to jump me to 8%, just know that if you go with a bank like that, you're thinking more short term, and that might be okay depending on the amount of debt that you're carrying. If you're carrying a lot of debt and your goal is you're trying to pay off a lot of debt, you're going to want to think a little bit more long term. If you opt out of the intro rate and you go with a prime minus 0.5%, and over the next few years rates come down another point, you could be as low as 5.75%. And if you're consolidating double-digit rates to low single digits, you're making a ton of progress. And then you add velocity and you do this method, you're in a really, really healthy position overall. So with that, that concludes our lesson today on how to find the right home equity line of credit in the state of Texas. We'll be back tomorrow, and my goal is to keep going live as much as I possibly can to finish off the year covering every single state in America to help you guys find the right HELOCs. Because once you have the right debt tool, the right positioning, you've done the pregame work, then coaching with me is going to be that much more smoother. Although I recommend investing in coaching along the way. Like I'm doing a lot of the work that we would already do if you hired me through coaching. This is a lot of the stuff that we would go through together. Okay? So I'm giving you that framework in advance. And here you go. And I've done it for years in my case study videos and in my how-to videos, but now I'm just going even deeper. I'm actually just saying, okay, look, this is what I do for my clients. I look banks up, we go back and forth. I say, here you go. And we're making money. Because the amount of money that you invest in me and coaching and invest in yourself, we make that back 9 times out of 10 just based off of the right tool that we start with and then the accountability that goes with it. All right. My name is Denzel Rodriguez, your personal finance geek of the 21st century. For those of you that are following me for the very first time, keep engaging in this series. Check out my other playlists as well on just building a strong financial foundation, base, all the pregame work that's involved before you even touch this strategy so that you don't hurt yourself, so that you don't shoot yourself in the foot, so that you don't destroy your finances. Okay, I would hate to see that happen, but realize that this is one of those strategies that does have risk. You are involving leverage. It does require more think, more strategy, more discipline than your traditional method. And with that, enjoy the rest of your evening. God bless, and we'll be talking soon. Bye now.